So we have seen that lower degree polynomials, they would be a good approximation to any continuous function, provided that we look at a small enough interval. So if we look at a very small range, then no matter what the variation, actual variation of the continuous function is, a lower degree polynomial can be a reasonable approximation to that variation within that limited range. And polynomials provide a very convenient set of non-exhausting linearly independent basis functions. We can keep on adding more and more higher degree terms to the approximation, and never we need to worry about the possibility of two terms being linearly dependent. They are by definition linearly independent terms, polynomial, different powers of the monomial terms. 1, x, x square, x cube, they are all linearly independent. And that brings us to a very important theorem which provides the basis of construction of this polynomial approximation, Weierstrass approximation theorem, which says that every continuous function defined on a closed interval AB. So this is a closed interval. These square brackets imply that these limits, end limits, are included. So whatever we talk about the range in between A and B, the end points are also included. So the closed interval A and B can be uniformly approximated as closely as desired as a polynomial function. Theoretically fine, because polynomials are infinite families, and any function, any continuous function, should be possible to represent as a linear combination of this infinite basis. So there is no theoretical contradiction in that, and that is why a polynomial is such a convenient family. But this sentence is a very, very deceptive statement, very, very simple, straightforward statement, but very deceptive. What it leaves out, theoretically this is fine, as from the function spaces point of view, we have an infinite basis, linearly independent basis functions. So theoretically any function should be able to we should be able to find a reasonable approximation for all of any continuous function. But the problem is, this sentence leaves out the criteria of approximation. It only says that it can be uniformly approximated, but it does not tell me what is how this approximation is to be judged. How do I measure the error of approximation, and where this is to be applied, or how this approximation is to be measured. So these two important criteria, two important aspects, they have been left out from this sentence, and we will see why this is so much of an issue, such a big issue. Let's say we will come to that why that criteria of approximation is such a big issue after we are done with little bit of definitions. What are the approximation? So let us talk about one of the earlier very old techniques of interpolation, what is known as Lagrange's interpolation formula. So we know that if there are n number of points, then there is going to be an n minus 1th degree of polynomial which can pass through those n number of points, and that can be constructed by accumulating the products, right? So let's say if I have n number of such products, pi x, I define a polynomial pi x, and I accumulate these products x minus x1 multiplied by x minus x2 multiplied by x minus xn. So obviously there are n number of terms, and this is a polynomial in x polynomial in x and of degree n. The highest degree is x raised to the power n. But because this is an accumulation, this is a product of these roots. The roots of the polynomial are x1, x2, x3, etc. And this polynomial vanishes at each of these points, x1, x2, x3, etc. The values at which the roots of this polynomial. So this form gives us an idea about, gives us a hint. If you notice our definition of interpolation function, we need the interpolation function to vanish at the nodes of interpolation. So this form actually gives us a very clear guideline that this is how we can define our interpolation function, which will vanish at all other nodes. So we just multiply the zeros of the nodes of the interpolation, and we can achieve the vanishing condition. So that is what we do. The vanishing condition for the interpolating polynomial ni of x at other nodes, that is j not equal to I, is enforced by considering those nodes as the roots of polynomial. And so one condition is satisfied. What to do about the other condition? The unity constraint at the native node is enforced by normalizing the product of zeros evaluated at that node. So for example, if we are going to construct the polynomial interpolation for node 1, then except for this particular term, I accumulate products of all these remaining n minus 1 terms. So this will ensure that this product, n minus 1 number of products, this will vanish at all nodes x2, x3, x4 up to xn except x1. So first condition, vanishing condition, is satisfied. In order to achieve the unity condition, that this product should evaluate to unity, all that I need to do is find out what this product evaluates at x is equal to x1, and then just normalize this product with that value. So effectively what I will have is Lagrange interpolation formula is defined as, for ith node Lagrange's interpolation, it is merely the accumulation of this product. Pi is the notation for product for all nodes j ranging from 1 to n plus 1, such that j is not equal to I except I. So we accumulate all these products, and then this numerator is evaluated at ith node, and then that is placed in the denominator. So this is the normalizing condition. If you look at it, each of these terms will evaluate to unity at xi. At x equal to xi, these terms will all evaluate to unity, and we end up with a product of 1s which will be 1. And at all other nodes, j ranging from 1 to n plus 1 except j is equal to I, j is not equal to I other than I, all these terms would vanish because x minus xj, xj minus xj will evaluate to 0. So that satisfies the interpolation condition, and this is the simplest way of defining interpolation. Of course, the polynomial is going to be unique. This is just a different way of writing that nth degree polynomial, which will pass through these n plus 1 number of points. So that nth degree polynomial which will pass through those n plus 1 degrees of n plus 1 data points is given by linear combination Lix multiplied by f at xi summation over I ranging from 1 to n plus 1. So there are going to be n plus 1 number of terms here, and together they will define a nth degree polynomial which will pass through those specified n plus 1 number of points. So very simple expression, and very easy to explain. I hope all of you are able to appreciate that. Any question about this? Lagrange interpolation? Anyone? Okay, so let's continue. So Lagrange interpolation polynomial is very easy to construct analytically. As we saw, it's just accumulation of product terms, but it is very cumbersome to evaluate beyond the first degree. So as soon as you begin to accumulate, please remember that I told you that multiplications and divisions are the most expensive floating point operations, and we are incurring too many floating point operations here in evaluation of Lagrange's interpolation polynomial, and that is definitely not very convenient. So beyond first degree, Lagrange interpolation polynomial is little difficult and a little cumbersome to evaluate. Definition is fine, but evaluation is of course little troublesome because of too many floating point multiplications and divisions. And another problem is Lagrange interpolation functions are global in scope, spanning the entire data range. The whole process needs to be started afresh if there is any change in data pairs. So if I change even one data set, let's say instead of saying x1 and f of x1, I need to mention it at a slightly shift from x1. Let's say x1 plus delta x and associated function value evaluated at that point. So this entire process needs to be repeated all over again. There is no way that I can manage with an incremental change in the process. So that's a major flaw in this process, and in all kinds of automatic computation it is preferred. I mean, just because if we involve too many floating point operations, first of all they are going to be expensive. There are computational efficiency issues there, and secondly there are accuracy issues also, because every floating point operation is going to add to the round of error that we have incurred. So it is preferred if previous computations can be reused for subsequent computations, so that we don't have to go back and repeat the entire computations all over again. So Lagrange interpolation polynomial is of only theoretical interest, and because it can be constructed, it can be derived very easily. I mean, at least a theoretical form can be derived very easily. It is often used for theoretical analysis, but it is rarely used for actual numerical computations. So theoretical derivations are all fine, but numerical implementation of Lagrange interpolation, particularly for higher degree polynomials, is very, very rare. So how do we do interpolation of higher degree? As I said earlier, I mean, the polynomial is of course unique. For a given number of n plus 1 number of points, there is only one nth degree polynomial which can pass through those n plus 1 number of points. So we just look at another rearrangement of terms, and that format of interpolation is named after Newton. So here we progressively build the degree of polynomial. So we start with the lowest degree polynomial, that is a constant term. Then we add a linear perturbation, linear addition. So that will add to the whatever is the constant term. We will add what needs to be done for to accumulate the linear variation. And once we have this linear approximation using 2 points, if we have third point, then we add a modification to this linear term, linear form, so that quadratic terms can be added, can be accommodated, and so on. So essentially the function, the approximate function nth degree polynomial f hat n, because this function nth degree polynomial is the same nth degree polynomial. There cannot be two different nth degree polynomial passing through same set of n plus 1 number of points. So this nth degree polynomial can be written as progressively increasing degrees of polynomial terms, polynomial forms. So this P0x is a constant term, P1x is a linear polynomial, P2x would be a quadratic polynomial, and so on, and Pnx would be nth degree polynomial. So essentially P sub ix denoting ith degree polynomial form. So 0th degree polynomial P0 is chosen such that f hat n, when evaluated at x0, returns the specified function value, that is f of x0. So P0x is simply synonymous with f of x0, that is given the specified function value at x0, and let us call it the coefficient C0 of the polynomial, nth degree polynomial, first constant term of the nth degree polynomial. P1, the linear term, is chosen such that when this approximation fn hat is evaluated at x1, it returns the function value f of x1. So P1x is equal to C0 plus C1 x minus x0, because this term should vanish, should not affect the condition that has already been enforced at x0. When evaluated at x0, it should return this function value f of x0. Right? So this C0 is f of x0, so that should evaluate to C0 when x is equal to x0. So we define the polynomial term as C0 plus C1 x minus x0. And C1 is now evaluated such that when this function is evaluated at x1, it should return the value of the function at x1. So P1 evaluated at x1 should return x1. So coefficient C1 is evaluated to enforce the condition, interpolation condition at x1, and that is what is done. I mean, we just substitute x is equal to x1 in this form and evaluate it, so it becomes equal to f of x1 minus f of x0 divided by x1 minus x0, and that is what it is. So f of x1 minus f of x0 divided by x1 x0, x1 minus x0. Similarly, the quadratic term P2 is given as linear combination of, addition, perturbation to the first degree polynomial. So P1 plus quadratic term. Now this quadratic term should vanish at previous 2 points that have already been managed. So C2 multiplied by zeros of the previous 2 points, x minus x0 multiplied by x minus x1. And this quadratic term, it should agree with the function value at x2. And so when evaluated at x2, and there is only one unknown, that is C2, and that can be evaluated by just evaluating the entire function at x2. So C2 can be evaluated as f of x2 minus function P1 first degree polynomial evaluated at x2, then divided by x2 minus x0 and product of x2 minus x1, so on. And then P3 would similarly be given as P3 is equal to P2 plus C3 multiplied by 3 zeros, and then again imposing the condition that P3 should evaluate to f of x3 at x3, and so on. So it is approximating polynomial is thus recursively built using previous approximations. So for nth degree term Cn is given as f evaluated at xn minus n plus 1th polynomial term evaluated at xn divided by those normalizing conditions, zeros evaluated at xn. And the Newton form of nth degree polynomial, interpolating polynomial, can be then given as c0 plus c1 x minus x0 plus c2 multiplied by x minus x0 multiplied by x minus x1, and so on, till we reach the nth term, which would be accumulation of all n number of products. So n number of terms, so this would be nth degree term. So by this way we have actually been able to solve a simple problem that all these polynomial terms, they are local. I mean, they are progressively building upon whatever is the modification to the already existing computation results. And the multiplications, they are reduced considerably, but they are still quite a few. If you look at it, I mean, they are progressively increasing. So it may seem that there is not much of reduction in multiplication. We still need to multiply n number of terms here to evaluate this polynomial, and obviously all other terms also have to be evaluated. But you will realize that if we reorganize this, then you will see that this factor x minus x0 is common for all n minus 1 number of terms except c0. Similarly, x minus x1 would be common to all n minus 2 number of terms except the first two, right? So it is possible to rearrange this term, this summation, polynomial approximation, form of this polynomial approximation, such that we can reduce the floating point multiplications, and that is by rearranging these, reverse the order of summation. So instead of starting from C0, we start from Cn and then Cn minus 1 and so on. Now you can realize that all the terms, I mean, this factor are repeated in this term. So nth term has this one additional factor, all these other factors are common with this. Similarly, the next term here, Cn minus 2, will have all the factors common here with this except for this one. So we can rewrite this sequence as progressive. I mean, I can keep on taking the common factors out, and this entire process becomes just one term multiplication then. And this is the most efficient way of computing Newton interpolating polynomial, and this is called Horner's algorithm. So it's only the computational aspect. The polynomial, interpolation polynomial, still remains the same. There is, I repeat, the nth degree polynomial which will pass through a given set of n plus 1 number of points is unique. Newton format and Lagrange format, they are merely different ways of expressing the same polynomial. if we simplify them and write both of them in the standard format, they would both eventually agree and have the same expression, functional form. And the recursive evaluation of coefficient of Newton interpolating polynomial can again be another source of tedious and cumbersome process, but there is a very convenient way of evaluating those by using divided differences, and this you must have already studied in your engineering mathematics course. I would advise you to please brush up your divided difference formulation of Newton interpolation. The basic idea is the desired coefficients are given by finite differences, divided differences of different orders, with C0 being the zeroth order difference. Zeroth order difference is just the uh, standard definition of finite difference of function values. The function value at x0 and x1. So the first order difference or zeroth order difference between x0 and x1 is simply f of x1 minus f of x0 divided by x1 minus x0. So this is what our standard finite difference definition is. So second order divided difference, this is of course the first order divided difference. Zeroth order is the function value itself. The second order divided difference between 3 points is going to be the difference between two first order differences, right? So x0, x1, x2, so it would be first order difference between x1 and x2 minus first order difference between x0 and x1, and then divided by difference between x2 minus x0, and so on. So similarly it will be third order would be between f x0, x1, x2 and x3 would be difference between f of x1, x2, x3 minus f of x0, x1, x2, and then that will be subsequently be again recomputed, divided by of course x3 minus x0, and then these can be recursively computed. And all these can be arranged in a tabular form very neatly, and one actually never looks at these evaluation format. One can only straight away compute it from the tabular form arrangement of data. So eventually the Newton interpolation polynomial can be given as nth degree polynomial is defined as constant value, that is function value at x0, and then there are n number of terms from first order term to linear term to nth degree term, and coefficients given by appropriate divide difference of the required order. So now we come to the importance of sampling points. We come back to our original questions that were raised in Weierstrass approximation theorem. So if we look at it, so Weierstrass approximation theorem, so we specified the problem that we highlighted here, that two crucial information, pieces of information are missing here. I mean, this Weierstrass approximation theorem says that it can be uniformly approximated as closely as desired, but it does not say what is the criteria of approximation, how do I measure the closeness of approximation, and where do I impose. I mean, it's an open-ended, so there can be infinite points here. So I cannot keep on doing this everywhere. So that's an impossible, practically not possible. So, and that is what brings us to the issue here, the importance of sampling points. And for that, we would like to take recourse to this point, Runge's function. We define a function f of x as 1 over 1 plus 25x square. So it's a continuous function. As you can see, this is a continuous line. So this is a continuous function. And we try to approximate this function by polynomial interpolation. So now polynomial interpolation, we can say, by Weierstrass theorem and by our intuitive logic, we would rather believe that if we add more and more number of terms, we should be able to approach closer and closer approximation. But unfortunately, it is not so straightforward as it seems. If we see this dotted line, these are the points. This is endpoint. If you see this point, at very regular interval, it intersects the Runge's function. And these are the points which we used for interpolation. So we constructed, we took 11 points in this interval from -1 to +1 and constructed a 10th degree polynomial, and these points are uniformly spaced. That is what we will do. Any sane person, if I am given the problem that we need to approximate a function and there are, the range is given, so how do I sample these points for the function to be approximated? In the absence of any other guidance, I would just, anybody would just say, let's sample them uniformly. So if I do the uniform sampling, generate the uniformly spaced values of x in the range -1 to +1 and evaluate this Runge function at those values, and then construct 10th degree polynomial which will pass through these 11 number of points. And this is the polynomial that I get. So you can see this, the approximation is reasonably good near the vicinity of x is equal to 0. So let's say as large as a 0.5 plus or minus 0.5, it's not too much of a bad approximation, I would say. But near the extremities, as the value of x increases, there are y fluctuation. The function still agrees. The 10th degree polynomial still agrees exactly at the nodes of interpolation. But in between the nodes of interpolation, there are wild fluctuations because of high degree of polynomial. This y fluctuation is entirely because of the very high degree of polynomial that is being used. On the other hand, if I choose some other points, we will come to that little later. If I do not insist on uniform sampling of points and I generate 11 points here, so some points you can see that 1 point here, 1 point here, 1 point here, so these are closely spaced and slowly the spacing is increasing. And again, spacing on the other end, it is decreasing as the value of x increases, right? So if I use this non-uniformly spaced data and then again I generate 11 points and then fit a 10th degree polynomial, and you can see the dramatic change in the nature of approximation. It's still the 10th degree polynomial. The only thing that has changed is the position of sampling points. And the change it's unbelievable. Unless you see this result and work on yourself, you will not believe how much difference the choice of sampling points can make in the quality of interpolation and the quality of approximation by polynomial interpolation. So how did I choose these points? And how do I choose? So obviously, if by this choice of points, if I can improve this approximation, then obviously there has to be an optimal set of points where the approximation would be best. Unfortunately, this problem is still unsolved. Weierstrass theorem tells us that it is possible to uniformly approximate to as close degree as desired any continuous function. But what it leaves out is the specification of the criteria for sampling points. We do not know how to obtain those best position of sampling points. What we do know is nearly optimal sampling point position, and that is obtained as roots of Chebyshev polynomials. Chebyshev polynomials are the roots of these orthogonal polynomials, and they are recursively generated. You can see that t0 is just a constant value, just 1. t1 is a straight line from -1 to +1 in the range of x ranging from -1 to +1. So that's a straight line. So if you see, if you multiply these t0 and t1 and integrate the under the range, you will find that it will evaluate to 0. So that's what the orthogonality means. The inner product of these functions, they are always 0 within the range. So they are orthogonal, mutually orthogonal polynomials. So roots of Chebyshev polynomials are nearly optimal locations for nodes of polynomial interpolation, and Chebyshev polynomials, they constitute a family of orthogonal functions which are defined for x ranging from -1 to +1 closed interval. Now they can be scaled, linearly scaled to any other range if required. And these Chebyshev polynomials can be generated recursively from lower degree terms. First two members of the family are t0 is given as a constant value 1 and t1x is just given as a linear term x. Higher degree terms, they are added as 2x. So this is not times, this is 2x multiplied by n minus 1th previous term minus t n minus 2. So that means t2 will be given by 2x multiplied by x, so 2x square minus 1. So that's a quadratic term, and that is what gives you this quadratic function. So this is t2x, and t3x would be 2x times t2 minus t1. So that would be the function for t3x. And there is a theory behind Chebyshev polynomial. They are roots of, they can be defined as roots of trigonometric function with x as cos theta, and nth degree would be just cos n theta for theta ranging between 0 to pi. And zeros of nth degree polynomial can be obtained as a general solution of trigonometric equation. So you need not go into the solution of polynomial for finding the roots of the polynomial. The zeros of nth degree polynomial, Chebyshev polynomial can be computed as a solution of trigonometric equations. and there is a general solution available for all trigonometric standard trigonometric equation cos n theta is equal to 0, and that can be used for generating the roots of Chebyshev polynomial. And these Chebyshev roots of Chebyshev polynomials, they are nearly optimal position, because as I said, we don't know what are the optimal position, but the roots of Chebyshev polynomials are very good locations for positioning of the sampling points, and they can be used for interpolation approximation wherever required, right? So we have seen one way to solve this problem, that is of the overshooting or very poor approximation. Another reason for that poor approximation was we were only looking at agreement of the function value itself. Our only concern here was that the function value should agree with the at the specified points, and we did not put any constraint on the gradient of the function, how this function value is approached as this node is approached, right? And that is that information is contained in the gradient value, gradient of the function. So maybe the situation will improve if I include the gradient information in the function approximation. And that brings us to our next formulation, next technique of interpolation, polynomial interpolation. So interpolation using only function values at the nodes can lead to large errors in the approximation, as we have seen in the case of uniformly sampled points for interpolation, polynomial interpolation of Rum's function. A better constraint approximation may be constructed by imposing constraints on the derivative of the approximating function. So I try to approximate not just the function values but also the derivatives of the function value in addition to the function value at the nodes of interpolation. So the constraints on the derivative of the approximating function may be same as the derivative of the original function if it exists. So that depends on the information available. So if the derivative of the original function is defined, then that can be specified, or the user can specify their own constraints, which may be which seem reasonable constraints on the function variation in the neighborhood of nodes. So for n+1 points, if I include the information of function value and the derivative, then there are 2n+2 number of constraints available, right? So 2n+2 number of constraints will allow me to evaluate 2n+2 number of independent coefficients, and 2n+2 number of independent coefficients would imply 2n+1 degree of polynomial. So very interestingly, for n+1 number of nodes, if I have function value and the function gradient, function derivative available for use in deriving the polynomial interpolation, then I can fit a higher degree polynomial than possible with just the use of function values. And that higher degree polynomial would be of 2n+1 degree. It follows from the number of independent constraints available for evaluation of the unknown coefficients, how many coefficients can be evaluated. So that is called Hermite interpolation polynomial, and we define function phi x as product of zeros, all x minus x0, all n plus 1 number of points, and construct two sets of polynomials. Let's say hjx as 1 minus second derivative of this phi divided by first derivative of phi evaluated at xj multiplied by x minus xj, and then this multiplied by L square of j. L square j is the Lagrange interpolation for jth node, and square it, and for each j ranging from 0, 1 to up to n. And similarly, cal h associated with node j is simply given by x minus xj multiplied by L square j, again j ranging from all the nodes, 0, 1 to n. And Lj is the Lagrange interpolation polynomial for node j. So this is the format, but we can obviously it looks very complicated, but we can actually look at this as piecewise interpolation between 2 points, 2 consecutive points. We take x0, x1, 2 conditions at x0, 2 conditions at x1. So this would be total 4 conditions in all at 2 nodes, and we can fit a cubic polynomial between x0 and x1. Now we move to x1 and x2. Again we can fit a cubic polynomial between x1 and x2. So this what we call as piecewise cubic Hermite interpolation polynomial, or p-chip, right? And that is what is used, and desired polynomial interpolation can be obtained as function value yj multiplied by associated interpolation function hj, and summation over all the points, and y prime j, that's the gradient value, multiplied by the corresponding interpolation function or corresponding to gradient values, and this linear combination gives us the total approximation. And this will work out to a very simple and very convenient expression for just 2 points, cubic variation, and that is very often very popular in data approximation, piecewise cubic Hermite interpolation polynomial, or p-chip as it is known as. So I will stop here, and we can have a discussion if anybody has any questions, queries.